Welcome back to Tipping Point. I'm your host, Kara McKinney. Republican Kentucky Senator Rand Paul is bringing attention to this massive expose written by former Kaiser Health journalist Emily Kopp for the website U.S. Right to Know. The senator wrote, "The deception in great COVID cover-up continues." That's in reference to Kopp's argument that American scientists purposely misled the Pentagon on what kind of research was exactly being done in Wuhan. According to documents received through a FOIA request to the U.S. Geological Survey by U.S. Right to Know, Kopp writes in part, quote, "A 2018 grant proposal called Project Diffuse, co-authored by the Wuhan Institute of Virology and American scientists, has stoked concern that the pandemic resulted from a lab accident. It proposed engineering a high-risk coronaviruses of the same species as SARS and SARS-CoV-2. Most worrying to some scientists, the proposal involved synthesizing spike proteins with furin cleavage sites, the same feature that supercharged SARS-CoV-2 into the most infectious pandemic pathogen in a century. Indeed, some scientists have likened Diffuse to a blueprint for generating SARS-CoV-2 in the lab. New documents obtained by U.S. Right to Know show that these experiments were proposed to occur in part in Wuhan with fewer safety precautions than required in the U.S., apparently to save on costs. American scientists at the center of the lab leak theory controversy appear to have concealed this from their desired funder, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, DARPA, in order to evade any national security concerns about doing high-level biosecurity work in China," end quote. The early drafts of Diffuse had comments from a PD and a BRS, which emails show the commenters to be none other than Peter Daszak, who leads EcoHealth Alliance, and Ralph S. Barrick, who leads a University of North Carolina lab which does focus on coronaviruses. As Kopp explains, the formal Diffuse grant proposal states that Barrick in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, will engineer the coronavirus spike proteins and test their ability to infect human cells. But in a comment on an early draft of the proposal, Daszak clarifies that the Wuhan Institute of Virology will in fact do much of this work, but that this is excluded from the formal proposal to make DARPA quote-unquote comfortable. The comment is addressed to Barrick and Wuhan Institute of Virology senior scientist Zhengli Shi, end quote. Since this article was published, EcoHealth Alliance uploaded their own response to their website yesterday, reiterating a claim made by Daszak before, which is that their 2018 proposal was rejected and so the work was never done. But Kopp already addressed that in her own article where she wrote, quote, "DARPA rejected the Diffuse proposal despite the scientists apparently whitewashing the national security and biosecurity dangers. The documents obtained by U.S. Right to Know suggest the gain-of-function work of concern was not funded before the grant submission in 2018. However, questions remain about whether the work was subsequently completed without the DARPA funding. Daszak has insisted that the experiments proposed in Diffuse were never carried out. The DARPA proposal was not funded, therefore the work was not done. Simple," Daszak said last year. However, Daszak had the ability to push forward with research without funding when a separate National Institutes of Health grant was halted, an email obtained by U.S. Right to Know shows. A progress report for the NIH grant for the year ending in May 2018 shows that the Wuhan Institute of Virology and EcoHealth Alliance conducted gain-of-function research on coronaviruses and tested them in mice engineered to express human receptors, end quote. Joining us now to discuss all of this and more is Hans Monkey, the co-host of Truth Over News on Epoch TV. Hans, thanks for being here tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Great. So I know you've been following this very closely. So what do you make of the objections made by Daszak and EcoHealth Alliance to Emily Kopp's reporting here?
They're completely meaningless. It doesn't matter whether this was funded or not. What matters is the actual proposal, which, as you laid out, is a blueprint for making COVID in a lab. Now, this proposal leaked in 2021 to everyone's huge surprise. And of course, Daszak and his team ought to have disclosed that much earlier in 2020 when the pandemic arrived, and they kept that concealed. So someone leaked it. Now, importantly, I think it's very important for your viewers to understand that this proposal involved inserting a furin cleavage site into a coronavirus. Now, as you mentioned, coronaviruses of this species that is, that led to COVID-19 do not have a furin cleavage site. It's never been observed in nature. Simply hasn't ever been seen. And they've looked at thousands of these things. So it's literally like finding a unicorn.